Welcome, everybody, to the Comedy.Law podcast, episode 6. I'm Max Langley, and with me, as always, are Shirelle and Keith. Today, we've got a special guest, Lisa from Old Republic. Lisa.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.
Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about your Genesis story like we talked about yesterday?
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't know how many people grow up to be in the surety industry. Or,
I thought
the agent.
everyone did, right?
Yeah, if you have a family member, sure, because I've seen
When you're a young
generational.
baby, you'd hear all about it.
So this is really funny. Out of high school, I'm not giving you the year because I'm going to be dating myself. But anyway, I went to legal secretary school, and I went to interview with law firms, and I had an interview with one law firm, and the lady who was interviewing me said, and I'm sorry if I'm being inappropriate, at least all these attorneys are going to want to, And so my mom's like, where the hell did you send my daughter? So I got sent to a insurance agency next. This is in Youngstown, Ohio. It was John B. Booth, but at the time, John B. Booth and the Pepinos, we had DeBartolo, Cafaro. Those were the original mall developers. So it was a big agency, and so I learned surety and insurance from the ground up from great producers, and I was lucky to have a great mentor who really, took time with us. But I originally started this business typing the bid bonds on a Selectric too.
Whoa.
Yeah. So from there, I ended up eventually going to college and went to grad school.
Well, wait right there for a second. Are you saying you got discrimination with the law firms?
No, it just that she said the men in the law firm would want to try to jump my bones because I was 18, 19, and must have been, yeah. So, I mean, but she said the other words. She used the, the F word, and that's when I'm like, wow. And I'm Italian. I'm not scared of that, but it was just my mother was like, what the hell? Why are you sending my daughter to these places? So by pure luck, I ended up working for a commercial insurance broker and learning the business agency from the ground up.
Was that when you were in college or when?
No, that was pre-college.
Pre-college. Okay. Yeah.
So when I was 18 to 22, I worked 4 years, and I got my license. They were really good. That time, do you guys? I don't know if you're old enough to remember Frank B. Hall. They ended up taking over this agency, but then I went to University of Dayton. I quit and went back to college and did my BA in 3 years. Then I went to work in Atlanta as a field underwriter. So I worked for CNA for 5 years, from 85 to 90, as a field underwriter. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. The South, our region was great. And then I went to law school, and right out of law school, CNA hired me and brought me into Chicago. So I spent from 93 to 2010 with CNA. We went through the Continental purchase. Then we went through the Western Surety capture purchase. And then I was asked to go and lead the commercial claim operation in Sioux Falls in 2003-04. And but after 2010, I left the industry for a while. Moved my family back to Ohio because my sons were now ready for high school. And long story short, I had some opportunities to work for a major developer, a multifamily home developer. Then I worked for a big agency, the Fidelity Group, which is based out of Ohio. And that was a great opportunity. We, bonded all wonderful contractors. I really liked working with the clients. And then I got headhunted back into the surety claim by Sampo and lived 3.5 years down in Nashville, and then Harry McKee's one of my dearest, oldest friends. He says he needed help at Argo. Harry and I have been besties going back to our first claim in Chicago, World Cup 1995. We had a painting contractor who was kicked off. We got him back on, and no loss. So Harry and I we're like the yin-yang male-female version of each other. I said, sure, Harry, I'll jump. I'll help you out. And more importantly, I got to come home to Ohio. My parents are 93. And, they're doing pretty good, for 93. But it was important for me to be in the house. I have brothers that help, but and now I'm working for Old Republic remote, which is a great opportunity because I like the traditional surety company, and when I say that, I mean old school, underwriting. Even though every surety has their credit market products, fast bonds, etc. I just, after what I saw working at Argo for a year, I'm like, oh my God, let me get back into the.
You don't like the emus. Is that what you're saying? You don't like the emus? You like the more traditional, like they only do surety, or what do you like? What is your
Well,
preference?
I like traditional surety, traditional construction because I was raised in that. My brother was a union road builder and just retired, and I just always liked construction and architecture and stuff like that. And I understand about PE coming in and how people underwrite differently, but what I was surprised to see were bonds that were backing letters of credit, and that to me
Hmm.
turns everything on its head. And but again, I never have been the type of claims person who wants to judge what underwriting does. That's their business. I mean, they can make their business decisions. It's just
Well,
Because you used to be
you
there.
raise a ton of interesting issues, and that's a fascinating background. Shirelle had the great idea to get a very powerful people, women in surety, and so that's your role. And Shirelle, I think it's your turn to go into that deeper and talk with Lisa about that.
Yeah, so Lisa, I'm happy to have you on the show. Um, so I've just to give you a little background about me, I've been in surety for about almost 8 years now. I started as a legal assistant, right? And then I basically worked my way up to being a claims examiner. I was with one company for 7 years, and I recently just transitioned to a new company. So I'm I like to think of myself as a young surety professional. So,
Yeah.
and we need you. We need you absolutely.
uh, um, in your experience, what challenges do you typically face when handling claims, especially as a woman in the industry? Have you had any issues, any major challenges or obstacles that you had to kind of overcome?
Well, first, I was very lucky to have an initial. My vice president, Tom Griesel at CNA, was just wonderful. In fact, he promoted me twice while I was expecting pregnant. So I think if you have a really good support structure upstream that supports you, that's number one. Number two, especially I urge this for young people, find someone, find a mentor. And I'd be glad to step into any role you need here because I've done that over the years. I think that's important. I know when I was much younger and less knowledgeable, um, I didn't have the confidence necessarily going into a first meeting, so made sure I had an attorney. But the most important thing you can do, and this applies across the board to anything, is have that curious mind, always be learning. So if you don't understand something, like for example, when I would do a claim on certain systems, or if I didn't understand what they were trying to do or build, I'd go do some research on the side to learn. So, but as far as I feel like the insurance business has been very good to women in general compared to other industries. I mean, we've seen women come up mostly through HR and general counsel's office, et cetera. So myself, I have never felt discriminated, but I don't know if that, I mean, obstacles in that, I think like just recently, you're always going to be called out on your decisions you make. I was dealing with what I call a fast bond principal. I don't even want to get into the claim, but he thought he was going to make money being a silent joint venture, and then he signed the indemnity, and now he's on the hook. And he was trying to tell me and my consultant I worked with that we don't know what we're talking about. So you're going to always have those people that are going to try to pull that on you. But the most important thing is to make sure with every claim you handle, you learn something, and you constantly learn. Because something about our claim world, nothing is ever the same. There's similar, paths and stuff, but each claim is unique. And another thing too is if you're not getting the support, find out why and insist on it in a way. Whether you have to get support outside with me or stuff, it's just important that you feel like you're part of a support system in general. But I was like I said, I was very lucky because I had that from the beginning through Tom Greasel, and I didn't
Yeah.
buy into this is another thing I want to say, contract versus commercial. I don't buy into one is better than the other. And, because first of all, when you're dealing with commercial, you do not have the benefit of sophisticated principals and their attorneys. You got to deal with the human element and get on the phone a lot and talk. It's a lot harder. It takes a lot more time than what I say, handing a large principal. The fast bond principals are more like the commercial, but the most important thing is if you have to.
So what's a fast bond?
Fast bond is all that credit rate. All the markets now write bonds up to $1 million or $2 million. They're trying to emulate the SBA, but basically they just write on credit. They don't underwrite. They don't ask for financials. Wow. They don't ask for.
It's just automatic.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So with these commercial bonds, I'm sorry to cut you off, Lisa. Okay. You can go ahead. I can ask after you're done.
No, keep going, huh? Yeah.
I was just going to ask fast bonds because what I've seen, especially with like commercial bonds, right, where you have the license and permit bonds or especially the FMCSA, right, there's a lot of fraud and it just seems like people kind of can get away with just kind of screwing the surety over a lot of times. Do you see that a lot, in your experience?
The property broker bonds are a problem. I mean, I saw that at Sampo because we have some sub-agents that write some low-hanging fruit property brokers versus some bigger ones. But that people make up invoices, et cetera. Yes, there's a lot of fraud in that. But if you have a decent principal, because they have all these trackers now that they have to jump through all these hoops when they pull those loads. But that is a very problematic bond. And yes, I've seen a lot of fraud in the last couple of years,
There's internal fraud too. There's been the surety claim handlers have been caught of making up those fake invoices. So that's happened at other sureties. You know that, right?
Oh,
yes, I saw that. There was Shirelle, there's a guy, big bucks, like millions. And then we had a situation a couple of years ago, remember, but you're right. He created false invoices like he had a consultant and was paying them bills. Yeah, handling fidelity claims over the years, not the banker, the big bonds, but generally, if you find when people do stuff like that and commit fraud, the more they get away with it, the bolder they get, and that's why they eventually get caught.
That's a great point. I mean, you have all the controls at your company. That's why those controls are in place, because you want to trust but verify. And, wow, it's such a huge deal. And when and outside counsel, when you deal with some of those people, you're like, oh my gosh, really?
Listen to this. The old public official schedule bonds. Okay, so you cover your treasurer. Your certain people that handle money. Now, some laws state that if it's by law they handle money, they have to have their own bond. But we covered an Iowa public entity, and somebody did a fish, and they were transferring money to a grant partner to another town. They had gotten money to do some, parks and stuff, and they were the master payer. So they always sent the checks to the accompanying city. This was like a big one coming out last December, $500,000, and then they said, hey, we'd rather have it wired to us. They apparently thought they went through the verification, but it was a fish, and the money never was taken away, never found out. So they made a claim on our bond. I think it was a $150,000 limit. But when you think about it, did those type of bonds, and at the time, I don't know if the coverage excluded that, because more modern types of these bonds will have exclusions, because really these entities should be getting cyber coverage and the coverage that really deals with these problems head on, but they didn't have anything. And we went to our attorney out of Manny or Herod, said we have to pay the claim, but that, such a low premium, and no one expected that we would have that type of claim, but you're seeing it everywhere. We had that at Fidelity Group too. Another GC was getting paid by a parish routinely, and he, when his payment didn't come 10 days later, he sent, hey, where's our payment? It was same thing. Someone came in and fished, and so it was over $2 million, that progress made.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Lisa, I'm going to give you a huge compliment. You are like the female Luke Bissell so far. You have experience in fidelity and in all sorts of surety.
Yep.
And Luke is like a close friend of mine, and he just has this prodigious memory about all these things that have happened in his life, so much so that he's writing a book about it. You already, from just talking to you for 15 minutes, I feel like you could write a book about all your experiences, and it would be a pretty interesting book. It wouldn't be a dry, just all surety P&P bonds kind of book.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
mean,
could do it a whole book on this fishing, not with a cane pole, uh, but the fraud and the fishing that goes on, which is becoming more and more a huge issue. And we're talking a lot of money. There
we're
are a
trained,
lot
all
of
of us.
people out there.
Yeah, I mean, all of us in our carrier side, we're all trained to take those courses, and then they send us out fishing emails. But it is really important that, even like at Argo, we had to call and be online for any type of wire transfer, and it's just, yeah, you gotta. That's another thing about security, but more importantly, insurance, it evolves, risk evolves. And I have a younger son who just graduated in accounting, didn't want to go work for a law firm. He, on his own, took the P&C and life test. His friends at the gym, because he likes to work out, said, let's do this life stuff. I'm like, no, Marcus, do P&C because people need car insurance, they need health, and they were pushing him to sell annuities. I'm like, oh, my Lord. But I wanted to get him to surety. What was my point I was saying? Oh, I was trying to tell him how interesting insurance is. Look at what happened out in California and how they approach rebuilding the, quote, built environment, materials. It's evolving, and that's why it's never boring.
It's a
Sure.
huge issue. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So, it's not that's why I always try to get young people into the industry, because especially if you get into a carrier, you're going to have a solid company. You don't have to worry about being laid off generally, and you will be developed, and you will, it's just a great opportunity. And, but it's not like, social media is sexy, but it's fundamental to,
Shirelle, have you dealt with phishing? Have you had that issue?
Absolutely. I had a claim or two that I was handling where, same situation that Lisa mentioned, where, like for the FMCSA bonds, there was a carrier, they moved some stuff, they didn't get paid. Well, they filed a claim saying that they hadn't received payment, but our principal had issued payment, but somehow someone had gotten into the claimant's email or something like that, and they were able to like log into whatever platform um, they're supposed to put the account information and all that, so they were able to like get the money. And because our principal did make a good faith effort to pay, we essentially ended up denying the claim because we can't ask our principal to pay twice. You know what I mean? But it happens quite a bit. And just like I said with the FMCSA, the the FMCSA bonds, I feel like they're smaller bonds. There's just a lot. It's difficult to like prove certain things. So I think that in that particular industry, it's a lot easier to do like fraudulent things because they can more easily get away with it. The bonds aren't usually that big, so it'll end up costing us more to try to pursue these people. To try to get any kind of money back. So it's kind of just one of those things that come with the territory.
right. We try to encourage we take collateral, but then they could always
Yeah.
put that money into a trust. But yeah, they're just a trip to deal with, and they take so much time. In addition to the issues you raised, they're very draining on a department.
And I think that's why there are some sureties that are kind of like no longer writing certain kinds of business just because it just ends up costing too much money. It takes a lot of manpower to deal with these smaller claims. And they pop up so frequently. I had so many FMCSA bond claims that I was handling at any given time. And it took a lot of my day, yeah, I'm happy to work, but at the same time, it's like,
Well, I know we had to have like 3 people full time to deal with. And then they come in waves, And then, listen, I was around with CNA when Consolidated Freight went under. Keith will remember that name. Consolidated Freight was the biggest carrier in the country. They went under, I think, in the late 90s. And I mean, it was insane because we had never seen that kind of activity. Thousands and thousands. But the good thing is at the time, if I recall correctly, if they had a contract with Walmart or if they had official contract with CF in between the claimant, it wasn't covered. I don't know if they changed that, but I just remember we were able to deny. But still, at the time, the bond was $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Now I'll tell you about and I when I was at Argo, they had there was a boat cruise company that went under, and we were subject to like 5,000 claimants, and most of the claimants were older couples that loved to take these cruises, but were not necessarily sophisticated on computers and stuff. And I'll tell you, that was quite challenging, but I did. I used to work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night calling people back because every time I hung up the phone, I had voicemails because my name and number got out there because Lisa was responsive. But I met a lot of really nice, salt-of-the-earth people, and people started sending me cookies and stuff. I'm like, not necessary, but
Those
I'll
are called
tell
bribes. We're going to talk about that
Yeah.
about with the Lincoln Lawyer movie.
Yeah, and I'm sorry,
No,
Bradley,
cookies are good. You got to eat the cookies.
Yeah,
Oh, that's not a
they got
bribe?
to Chicago, and I was sitting in Ohio. But the thing is, it was just very challenging. But it's a people business when you're dealing with commercial claims. And
Well,
I think all of surety.
you talked about things, Lisa and Shirelle, that is so wide ranging. We're talking about construction projects, highways, buildings, and we're also talking about trustee bonds and all these other FMCSA, whatever you said, Shirelle, bonds. We're talking about a ton of things. And I take it that from what I've heard, the most important thing is to communicate with the claimant. Email them, pick up the phone, talk to them, and let them know that you care about what is going on.
Yeah, because nothing will get you an insurance complaint quicker than being non-responsive. So, I mean, it's like with everything else, communication is key.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
all of surety is a people business, really, from what I've experienced so far. And I've just experienced it from the outside counsel perspective. But to me, communication can solve a lot of these problems that turn into legal disputes. If you
Absolutely.
just talk it out early and you try to be kind of like a mediator of sorts, then you can come to the right resolution without the cost ballooning on the back end.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to say to some contractors who are trying to backcharge some of their subs and stuff. I'm like, gee, what do you have to take to court? And do you really want to, do legal spend for a difference of $20,000? I mean, we always have to be cognizant of everybody's rights, but we're also business people, and that's what I try to impart to some of my project managers who just want to dig their heels in and act like the big, this is a GC versus a sub. But yeah, I mean, you can't act that way, and common sense too, but it's not always so common.
So Lisa, tell us about transitioning a little bit from the commercial bonds and the fidelity to the P&P, because Shirelle is kind of doing a little bit of that transitioning. She's just dipping her toes into P&P, and she's going to do it more and more.
Great.
But tell us kind of the differences and how you change your approach when switching over.
Well, I mean, first, I'm assuming she'll start with some payment bond claims, and that's generally how we train people. I think making sure your principal knows that he has to give you a response, and preferably in writing with backup. So sometimes contractors get busy and they don't necessarily, are timely responding back to you, but that's why I always try to put a date in my letters or a date in my emails. But again, it's just a learning process, and going back to people, it's sometimes you just got to call them up and say, hey, I sent you this email. I need for you to respond, and this is why we have sometimes you have to claim we have an independent duty to investigate, and I need your help. And just like
people are different on the phone compared to how they are on email, right?
Very good point. Yes.
Yeah. So, like, you can get a more real answer from people usually in person or by phone. You don't get the real answer by email.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I'm dealing with this claim now, and I'm like, I call him up, and I'm like, I hear it's Lisa, you're pain in the ass, but I need you to really explain this to me like I'm a 10-year-old or something. Yeah, I mean, I kind of make a joke with it,
Yeah.
but he's still, yeah, exactly. But I think it's fun I mean, commercial gives you skills to deal with people, because you're dealing again with unsophisticated people. And as you transition into P&P claims, hopefully you'll be dealing with, your principals will be responsive. It just depends on what market. So I don't have a problem with most of my Old Republic contract accounts that are underwritten, but where we see some of the disconnect is the fast bonds, because again, they're more like a commercial. They're written on credit, and you're not dealing with people that are very sophisticated. You have to teach them a little bit about the surety, what their role is, and why I'm asking you all these questions, and hopefully they'll respond.
And Lisa, how important would you say it is to maintain a friendly relationship even with the underwriters? Because
Oh, very.
I know you mentioned with the commercial bonds, there's less underwriting, so you may see more issues, but then you kind of have to present it to the underwriter. How do you typically handle situations like that?
Right. I mean, I grew up in working side by side in a branch with underwriters, so communication was always key, and especially if you handle some larger accounts that are, been with it. Like I had accounts out of Atlanta that were with us for 25 years, 30 years. That a couple of them built Hartsfield Airport. My point is, you have to handle those accounts carefully, as long as you know who the right person is. You need to talk to a risk manager, in-house counsel, project managers. You have to be very professional. And as you get to know, then maybe you can loosen up. That's quite different than some of the commercial, like you said, commercial principals who may not even be responsive. So you'll learn to discern, but you have to keep your underwriters aware of everything. And it depends on the company's policy too. Like right here, when we set a claim up, it sends a signal to our underwriters so they can say, hey, Lisa, you're handling this claim. What's the status? And I get that all the time, and I communicate. I'm transparent, and they really appreciate it a lot, because especially the ones that underwrite and are currently considering writing additional bid bonds and stuff like that. So
let me ask you, Lisa, how and when do you involve underwriters to talk with the account that you have bonded?
Only if they want me involved in that discussion, because I'm hoping that the underwriter and that agent is an NASBP agent or someone that has that background in surety and can guide them. I'm trying to think back in the day with CNA. We would have some meetings together, but again, it was more, it was more going over what open claims were, etc. I never, if I'm asked my opinion on something, I'll give it, and I'll give it bluntly based on my experience. But I haven't had any problem with a good account understanding what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, Lisa, is not your opinion, but the underwriter's opinion, and they're facilitating for you to talk with the principal and realizing, hey, what Lisa is doing is very important. This is a claim. It's got to be dealt with. And you, principal, need to deal with issues. And you need to put Lisa in touch with the right person to get this resolved.
Yeah, I mean, they do really good here at Old Republic. And in the past, I've always had good working with underwriters and being a conduit to the agent. Some agents are really sophisticated and they want to get involved. We don't want that. We want that agent to be able to communicate what the surety's role is and the importance of getting the information back to us documented. Don't just give me an email with a couple of lines. I need backup to it if that calls for it. Trying to think what else. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay. I ramble sometimes.
That was a good
It's,
ramble. I like
I
it.
was just gonna say that it was a good ramble. I'm learning a lot listening to you. So
I mean, the thing
I
is,
mean,
I remember in. Go ahead, Shirelle.
no, I was just saying, as like I said, I keep saying I'm a new professional. I mean, yes, I've been in surety for almost 8 years,
You
but I
are. You're
still
fresh
feel,
out the gate.
yeah, like I still feel like a baby when it comes to like understanding and knowing certain things. But I'm always happy to talk to more experienced people when it comes to surety because there's always something to learn. So,
Yeah, we're gonna have to give ourselves our information, my emails and my phone numbers. Because feel free. I tell that too to people that I used to work with. They still call me every once in a while. They'll say, "Lisa, what do you think of this?" And my phone line's always open
There's
because
a lot
I.
of things that people will tell you like over the phone or on a meeting or in person that you don't find in the books. Because I've
Yeah.
read every surety book out there, and there's a lot of this stuff that isn't in there, like the practicalities, the how tos, the how to just talk to a person and be real with somebody. That isn't in the books.
No.
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
easy to get to know. It's so easy to hear no, 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 no. And with an email, it's easy to say, no, I'm not going to do that. The key is how to get to yes. How do you move the ball forward?
Yeah, that's why you pick up the phone and talk to people. Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've learned. I won't say the hard way because I haven't run into any issues, but initially I used to, rather than call people, I would send emails, right? But then I realized I had a mentor of mine say, yeah, sometimes it's better to pick up the phone and call because you don't want to be impersonal, like you don't want to just send an email because it can be read or interpreted so many different ways. But if the
And
person
I.
kind of
Yeah.
if the person kind
Yeah.
of gets to know you just a little bit, then sending the email, they can read it properly because they
Exactly.
know
Then
you
There
a
you
you
can
little
go.
bit.
say,
Yes.
yeah, for our conversation, right? Then you have established that, right? That's what I do exactly, Cheryl. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so important. I mean, so many times your point gets lost in the shuffle. And so it's so important to confirm in writing what you have talked about. I said, you said, and whatever the issues are, we need to address ABC. And you're going to talk to your treasurer or whomever to get that information. Do
Exactly.
that by Tuesday. So I'm going to call you back.
And I love bullet points. Boom, boom,
And
boom.
Lisa, there's this hard thing. It's like a balancing act I've noticed at sureties that how much stuff does the claim handler put into the file? Some sureties want kind of a minimal file, whereas other ones want a bigger file. And the concern is that, it's not attorney work product. There's a chance it's not attorney work product, and there's a chance it's not attorney client privilege. So what's your experience with that of how big the file looks from claim to claim?
I'm a big documenter, and
Yeah.
when it depends on what system you have. Because like when I was at Sampo, we went online with Claim Center with the backup with ImageRight, and you could just do your notes daily. Now I remember years and years ago, you never put anything in your notes that you never want anyone to see or discover. I mean that's a basic um, factor. We shouldn't be opining. We shouldn't be editorializing. We should just stick to
Stick to the
facts,
fact. Yeah.
right? And I remember, like if I would have a tough conversation where I would get, kind of, it's easy, steamed up as an Italian. You always wait. You wait before you do anything. I mean, you may want to draft an email to yourself, make some points, but of course you never go ahead and send that out. And then, the next day you think about it and make the call. But sometimes it's easy to get frustrated with people, especially with you're dealing with a lot of incoming. And we never thought that we would be handling claims via email. Who would think email is the main way a lot of communications are, in claim world is dealt with, whereas versus the formal letter and quite frankly, I still I have to find out what Old Republic requires, but I do a lot by email. I always keep a reservation of rights, but sometimes if it's a major issue, then I do more formal letters, especially if you're going to be making collateral demands. But it's really important to me that the file is properly documented for audit or for whatever. I mean, but again, with the warning that you should just document your file factually and not
It's
be.
hard to not write the principal is a liar, or the obligee is a liar, because I've seen that in the files before from other clients. We see that kind of language in
I
there.
say, yeah, they're not being candid, or I question their veracity. Yeah, I mean, there's a way you can.
And you say it, you couch it, you say they may not be candid, right? You don't say
right.
they are not candid.
Exactly.
You don't just
I think
destroy
the
their entire
difference,
credibility.
Max, is hey, you've got what Lisa and Shirelle have talked about, in their daily walk and what they're doing back and forth with the principal or the claimant, the obligee. But if you go to a meeting, if you go to the project and you interact with people, those are very different. You're very tempted to editorialize about that. And that's the biggest issue is your note taking and your memos to the file about that issue. That one you have to be very, very careful about. And it's better probably to reduce or eliminate that if you can.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Exactly.
All right, we've got usually in these in about 45 minutes. So let's do final questions for Lisa, and then let's talk about the movie of the week. So
Okay,
anybody got any?
I've got a question. I'll start. Lisa, tell me what's happening right now today, and what would you like to see happening tomorrow? In other words, given what you're doing right now, is everything great? Are there some issues you'd like to see changed? And what do you see going forward?
I mean, I think what's most important to any surety or any industry now is that their people are developed, trained, and we keep up on IT. I mean, it's always you always have to invest in your IT and train your people and have make sure that they can use the tools. And I think it's hard when when you're so busy, you need to carve out the time to use it, learn to use those tools and get familiar with them because, again, the more you do it, it becomes second nature. So I'm really big on, and that Old Republic is going through that now. We are doing claims online, but we're looking to do a new underwriting storage system. And so that will eventually be a Guidewire product and hopefully feed into Claim Center. So for any company or industry, but particularly surety, is having the right IT application can make your claim handling easier, your ability to document easier, and slide things over easier. But I think some of the challenges is finding additional talent to come into this industry. There's and that it's across insurance too. We have so many learned people here. We have some good people in their 40s and 50s, I think. And then we have Shirelle and the people that are here that really need to be brought up and mentored. So I think another important thing is I like again, this industry, the surety, Fidelity Surety Subcommittee is very good as far as education training, developing women, making sure women have a leadership role in this. And it's funny because Rudy, my boss, said that he feels like since women have been brought up and more into our industry, it's become much better. And of course,
it has. You need that balance.
Yeah. So I think, in light of what's happening externally, politically wise, it's hard to, being a lawyer, it's hard to function sometimes as far as the rule of law. But, again, our job is to show the value of the surety product that people pay for. And as claims professionals, that's our role, is to, determine the claim amount, if it's good or bad, efficiently, effectively, and get that claim resolved and turn over, because that's what the bond is there for.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. Shirelle, what do you have?
So you mentioned, Lisa, just getting more young professionals or young people involved in the industry. I'm just wondering if you had any ideas as to how we can kind of do that, because I myself am very much an advocate for um, increasing diversity in the surety industry. Especially I'm a Black woman. I'm fairly young, and I don't typically see people. There are more women, yes, right, but it's still not very balanced as far as
Right.
minorities are concerned in general. Be it whether you're a woman or a person of color or any other nationality, you typically tend to see a certain group most of the time in the whenever I go to
Absolutely.
these charity events. So did you have any ideas as far as, like, what might bring more young talent, or even just not necessarily young, but just diverse talent,
I know. It's funny because I worked with a young woman over at Sampo. She went to, oh God, in Alabama, but they studied insurance. So if there's colleges around you, I mean, first of all, we'll get together and we'll do some head scratching but if there's colleges around you that offer degrees in insurance or risk management and similar, that's one way to think about whether you can reach out to them and try to get go and, oh my God, like when they have job day or something like that, get involved in. But I know that there's women in surety. You're sitting where, Shirelle,
New
in
Jersey.
New York, New Jersey? Okay, because there is a group, women in surety, but again, it's very much looks like me, probably. But I'll find out, if there's other groups. But yeah, let's get together and think, because I'd love to bring more women and Black women and women, people of all colors into this industry, because it's a very good industry.
Well, we
And in
need to
fact,
make a note there, Max. We should talk about exactly promoting that and have a show on the 10 easy steps to promote diversity and engagement of the young people, because this is a big issue. It's not just the diversity issue, but getting young people involved is a huge issue for our
well,
industry.
and also too, like the underwriters too, like any brand, you want, if you're selling your product, you want to see people that look like you, and brings it into the brand. And I am fortunate to know Peter Gibbs of Foundation 30. He was the SBA head of SBA for many, many, many years, and he went out and he retired and started his own agency, and he's been bringing in young people into
He's
it
a
and
great guy. He's
traveling.
really active on
Yeah,
LinkedIn
he
too.
is. He's just an awesome guy. And when I was at Fidelity, we happened to be Agent of the Year, so he came and gave us our award, and I was lucky to meet him. But I've kept in touch with him. But he is another. Yeah, he would have lots of ideas as well, and he would be great to spend some time with as well, Shirelle. Yeah.
Yeah, we should
Mm,
have him on the
yeah.
show. There's
Yeah.
really not a
Yeah.
lot of people of color in surety.
Yeah, there's Kingdom. Yeah, Kingdom is one, and then Foundation or two on LinkedIn I see often. And, I always comment because I love to see them do well. But they also do, like, Foundation will go partner with Turner or certain GCs, and they have certain days where they'll partner and go, and then they'll have meetings with potential people that want to be bonded and be in the public contract world. Yeah, I was lucky because Kevin Keller taught me all the SBA. I used to handle SBA accounts as far as placing the business, which now Fast One seems to take over with no reinsurance. That's not funny.
All right, all right, all right. That was funny, and the perfect way to end the
All right.
Comedy.Law podcast interview. Now we got to talk a little bit about Matthew McConaughey, the Lincoln lawyer. I loved that movie. Shirelle, what do you rate it on your honesty scale of
I
1
would rate
to
it
10?
probably at 8.5. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I
Oh,
love Matthew McConaughey. Like, first of all, he's handsome, so that's a plus. So it's easy to watch him, and then he's just a really, really talented actor. So yeah, definitely 8.5 out of 10.
yeah. Okay, so you got Tom Cruise a little higher. I think you gave Tom Cruise a 9. A Few Good Men, you gave that a 9, didn't you?
Yeah, I feel like it was a little less like I think Keith mentioned before we started recording that there were some unethical things going on in the Lincoln Lawyer
Yeah,
movie. So I just took off half a point for the
or
unethical
ethical
parts.
violations.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a good message to send to the young kids. Come on.
Yeah,
You
if you
can't
take
bribe.
away points for
Yeah.
ethical violations, it's a 0. But, you know, in entertainment, it's definitely at least an 8, maybe higher.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's that handsome. Maybe.
Matthew
I don't know.
There
McConaughey,
was
he's very
there
handsome.
was there was there was somebody on my LinkedIn that said his law school gave an exam on the ethical impact of the movie, and I asked him how'd you do, and he goes, all right, all right, all right. But the right answer is to just say the whole movie is an ethics violation from a lawyer standpoint. Attorney ethics. I mean, from the get go, he violated the ethical rules, and then he continued to do so.
It was a continuing violation the whole movie. That's right.
So it's a good movie of a lot of the what not to do's, but in the very end, he was in such a conundrum that he kind of had to violate ethical rules to save his life and to save his family's lives, right? At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an exception to an ethical rule for, hey, I was under duress, so I threw it out. I don't know. Lisa, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, you want to hear something funny? First of all, I was watching the Netflix Lincoln Lawyer last night, not the original movie, like a dingbat.
It's the same plot, though.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Repeat your question, Keith. Sorry.
Well, I guess the first question is, what do you think about the movie in general? The second question is ethics. We all have a duty to the client, and it's so high. It's really high, and you have to be, preserve their confidences and be their voice. And here, the whole theme of the movie is, Matthew found a way to throw his own client under the bus, which I guess the question is, what would you do? What do you think about the movie as entertainment, and what would you do with that kind of ethical conundrum? Man, that's a huge issue.
I mean, I think the movie's great. Like I said, I like cinema, but I don't. The question is, does that happen? How often does that actually happen in real life? I mean, the thing is, if you don't stand for your ethics and stand, you can't get to the right place doing the wrong thing. So I would find it hard ever to fathom me ever putting myself in that position. But then again, I've never been a trial lawyer or a lawyer out practicing. I've always been in-house. But all I can comment on is how important ethics and character is. Character is so important, and a lot of our problems that we see today is because there's no character or ethics, and so I don't want him to be idolized for doing the wrong things, even if at the end he's trying to figure out a way to come out on clean, but he still was not through the movie. So
Well,
not
that's
someone else. Yeah.
great point. Ethics is so huge, it's so important. And as an outhouse lawyer, I've never had this issue. But certainly it's very difficult. It would be a law school exam question, what can you do? And it seems to me what you can do is either not take the case or get out of the case, and figure out a different way to protect yourself and your family. Throwing your client under the bus is not the right answer, and it's not any answer.
Right. It didn't
yeah,
achieve
but he
anything.
didn't do it. His assistant found all that stuff. What are you talking about?
At his urging, his assistant did it.
There were whispers.
Well, I got to tell you, I really liked the movie, and I liked Mona Lisa Vito. I didn't know Marissa Tomei was going to reprise her
She was much
role.
more calm this one. I think like her biological clock is done ticking or something.
Yeah, she was great. She
That
was.
was from the first movie, guys. I'm not saying anything sexist. Gosh.
I kind of thought her role in My Cousin Vinny was maybe even better.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
killed it in My Cousin Vinny. Like they even said that the Academy Award didn't belong to her, so they did a revote, and then she won it again. So she won 2 Academy Awards for My Cousin Vinny. On this one, I think she was much more tempered and was, but I guess she kind of played the role right. She was playing the DA, so she couldn't be scummy or anything.
Yeah.
She had a tough situation.
Yeah, her role was pretty small. Well, I shouldn't say small, but it just wasn't as significant. She really turned the tables with My Cousin Vinny and her analyzation
Yeah,
of the whole like car situation. So, but I like her as she's actually pretty versatile. She
she
used to
is.
be
Yeah.
on. I don't know if you guys ever watched A Different World. She was on. It was like a show about an HBCU, and she was like a roommate of one of the main characters.
Hmm.
I think she only did like one season, but it's so interesting to watch how she was from that season of that TV show. It was like a spinoff of the Cosby Show. She was
Yeah.
on A Different World, and then now I'm like, wow, this woman is actually, I shouldn't say actually, as though I don't expect her to be good, but she's really a great actress. I enjoy watching her, even in Spider-Man too.
Uh,
Well, what's great for all of us, when you talk about old, the saying is you want your doctors young because they're learning all the latest and greatest and new stuff, and you want your lawyers old because they have all the experience to apply. So that's a good thing. I like that because I'm not getting younger every day, but I'm getting better.
me too, Keith.
So was paying for the VHS tape with a different client's money an ethical problem there?
That's commingling, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing that.
Remember when he paid the $1,000
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
guy that was doing the video?
Hmm.
I was like, wow, I think that this is you can't rob Peter to pay Paul.
Like I said, there were ethical violations continuing throughout the movie. So I had to suspend that. I had to put that to the side. Then it became very interesting, especially when the mother said, I told you my son did not kill your investigator. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that surprised me. That really, I was like, oh my God, anything for her son, I guess, even
if the
murder.
client's mother shoots you, can you shoot back? I think you can. If the client's mother shoots you, you can shoot back. That is the rule. That is my rule.
That's probably written somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere deep into the ethics rules of what you're allowed to do. Self-defense.
Right. Yeah, did she die or did they just not mention her again?
They didn't mention her anymore. That was weird. They left it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
think
like,
it wasn't a kill shot though, I don't think.
it happened so fast I couldn't tell. I was like, oh my goodness, is he a murderer too? But it was justified. It was justified. She shot him first. You hit me, I hit you back.
Eye for an eye makes the whole world. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we should cut that part out of the podcast. I don't want to be accused of anything.
Promoting violence. That's what we're gonna call this episode. Shirelle promotes violence, and Max promotes sexism.
Well, I think the great thing, Max, is it was a great movie. Not a good ethical lawyer issue, but a great movie.
Yeah, it was a great movie, and like that's obviously not real life. It just doesn't happen where they come in there and set you up from the beginning and have this elaborate scheme. Like I've never had a client try to set me up, and I don't think Keith has either. He's got a lot of interesting war stories, but never has his client try to set him up for a crime.
I've
Oh,
never
that's
had that.
good. If
It could
anybody's
happen, though.
if
Yeah.
anybody wants an ethical attorney to model after, we'll just refer them to Atticus Finch. But if you
Yeah.
There you
want,
go. Have you
if you
seen
want
that
to be
one, Lisa? Yeah, that
Yeah.
one was good. To Kill a Mockingbird. That was
Oh,
one of our
classic.
favorites. We teared up a
Absolutely.
little during that one.
Aw.
We did. We
I think
did.
that was
I think
that was only Max. I didn't
There's
tear
only
up.
me. Yeah, it's only me. Sherelle's like, this is my everyday life. I've dealt with a lot of racism, a lot of terrible stuff, right? Like,
I can tell you,
so
like in college, definitely, but that's a whole nother story.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of racial elements on this last one on Lincoln Lawyer. It was just that wasn't a factor. It was mainly just psychopaths and sociopaths, right?
lots of
For
that
which
going around
movie?
lately.
Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, I mean, like
Both Matthew
if I want to win, I'm gonna hire Matthew McConaughey's character.
I'd hire Atticus Finch. Of all of them that we've met so far, I'd hire Atticus Finch first. Even though he lost.
Maybe.
So
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
lost. I
definitely
want to
did very
win.
good in that movie.
I want to go home. I don't want to be in somebody's jail.
yeah, jail's nasty. You don't want to go there.
Right. I mean, you get 3 squares a day, but still.
No, it's probably not good food in jail.
Probably not.
All right, let's see. All right, that's longer than we've ever gone before, so I think we should end it so Editor Blaze doesn't have 2 headaches while he's looks at how long this is.
Make sure he gets my good side.
Yeah, he's got your good side. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, and we're going to let it buffer for 1 minute after the recording stops.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.